Hello, Edwina Murphy-Droomer is my name, and I want to warmly welcome you to this interview in the series that is all about unleashing the audacious woman within. Today's mentor is Jaimsyne Blakely. Jaimsyne has an unfathomably deep pool of wisdom that she has accumulated over decades of walking her talk, business and life experience, and a story that is going to blow your socks off. I am so excited to bring to you Jaimsyne because she truly has the trifecta of inner knowing, life and business experience, and serious shift kicking energy. Jaimsyne loves supporting people to accelerate their purpose, possibility, and potential to live a truly epic life. Jaimsyne, oh my goodness. I am so excited to do this interview, and I have left it to last for very good reason, because you are one of the dearest people in my life, and I feel so privileged to have the opportunity to record one of our conversations and to share you with women across the globe. So thank you so much for doing this, Jaimsyne.
Thank you so much for having me on, Edwina. I'm excited for people to be a fly on the wall in our conversation and to engage them in what we talk about, because we have some of the best conversations.
Yeah.
We've traveled down so many rabbit holes and through so many black holes.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And I want to share with the women watching that when you showed up and I saw what you were wearing, I was like, that's it. I'm off to put on some sequins.
Yes. And I stood for that. Absolutely. I wanted you to wear sequins. Yes.
So for the women in our audience that haven't had the pleasure of meeting you until now, would you give us a little bit of a story about who is Jaimsyne Blakely and how did you come to be doing what you do now?
Well, the first thing that came to me was like there was a movie called that Steve Martin was in called, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot the name of it right now. Okay, it's going to come to me. But anyway, essentially he starts with, I was a poor, blah, blah, blah. And so I grew up in Opportunity, Washington in the United States. Well, that's where my life started. It kicked off in Opportunity. And trust me when I tell you that there were no opportunities there. So we left shortly thereafter. And my life, like I would say joy is the centerpiece of my life. And that did not come. It is my essential nature. Yeah. And it's not what life handed me over and over again. Yeah. Right? So how I came to be, I think, was forged through what other people would call tragedies. Yeah. And we've all had them. Yeah. And so my life has been, and my work has been forged through the things that, through sexual abuse, through the loss of my dad when I was 6 months old. He died in a car accident, and his two best friends were in the car accident, and they were killed instantly, and he lived for 7 days over what would have been our first Christmas. Yeah. Now, those seem like really devastating circumstances to be born into. And then my best friend died when I was 4 and she was 5. Her name was Joy Baker. And my first cookbook will be called Joy Baker. And there's really not, I think, a day that I don't talk about joy. It's so interesting. She is like a talisman in my life, because I really feel that she and my grandparents taught me and my great grandmother taught me what joy really was. And, and then life continues, right? And my life has been marked by a lot of people in my life dying. But as my grandmother said, that's the price of a big life. And, and so there's context that I think I've gained. Wisdom is really important for me. And there's context and wisdom that I've gained from all of these experiences that have happened to me. And I feel that my practice is looking square in the eye of whatever is going on and also being in joy.
Yeah. Jaimsyne, I know that, we often hear words that get thrown around, and joy is one of them. We talk about authenticity, we talk about surrender, we talk, like these words, and we kind of touch on them on a superficial level. We have a sense of what they are, but understanding true joy, I will say that you have been one of the women in my life that has really introduced me to a picture of what joy looks like, the way you operate in the world, the way that you connect with other people. You bring so much joy, but it's one thing to see that. How do we start to bring it into our own life? So when you think about bringing more joy, is it a conscious practice that you can talk to us about?
Wow, thank you for asking that question, and thank you for the compliment. um, yes, and because I work in the personal development field and the sort of world of transformation, let's say, that idea of just be joyful. I think we would all do that if we knew how. And so, as you and I have spoken about many times, one of my frustrations with that whole personal development field is that there are a lot of slogans, but there's very little information about how to do that. Like, what's a practice? So I appreciate the comment, the question that you're asking me. And it's a few things. It's, how some people say, don't go to bed angry. Well, my motto is, don't go to bed without having a soul venture. Don't go to sleep before you've done something that opens your soul up. I always have something to look forward to. I don't care if I'm doing it at midnight, at 1 o'clock in the morning, at 2 o'clock in the morning. Something that lights you up.
Yeah.
Something that makes you come alive. Something that takes you out of the mundanity of life. Something that is audacious to other people. And so, sometimes a walk can be a soul venture. It can be audacious to take a walk, because it means you're going to have to stop the mat. You're just going to have to leave, and the phones are going to have to ring, and you're going to have to let it bleed. You're going to have to let everything go to shift. And I'm compelled to say something right now, that notion that you can't be gone. Look, I'm not talking about leaving your baby, in the house alone, but I'm talking about you have the time. It's your time. And what women have done is, typically, we can't manage time, but we can manage ourselves. Yeah. And most of us, we're taught to manage time. Well, that's not possible. It's learning to manage ourselves that's important. And so that a soul venture, when I go out to dinner, for example, I don't go to one restaurant. I go to 2 or even 3 restaurants. Yeah. And I'll have appetizers in one place, yes, and dinner in another, and dessert in another. And I'll drive around Los Angeles, even when it was filled with traffic. Yeah. Because I'm letting my wild nature, my soul, my wild nature, not my domesticated must, should self, go. I'm letting it go. Yeah. And that's joy.
Out of the mundanity of life just lit me up. As soon as you said that, it was like, we have found our focus. We have so many conversations that we dive into so many different things, but that statement is exactly where I want this conversation to go. Okay. It is beautiful. So
I'm with you.
having been privy to your wardrobe, Your fabulous clothes, your makeup, your routines in your life, the way that you eat, the way that you pull people together and interact. It is all about interrupting that, what I call the proverbial hamster wheel that we get very caught up in, that really sucks the joy out of life, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
So this is one of your gifts. I love it. I love pulling all your gifts because there's so many, but this is one that you do really well.
Thank you. Thank you.
So out of the mundanity of life, let's start with vision, because that's something that we both love to talk about.
Yes.
Where we are in the world right now is this place of transition. I've said it, my audience will have heard me many times. It's a bit messy. There's lots of possibility to get pulled into fear and overwhelm and scarcity and all the things that we don't want to experience. So let's look at vision for future. Where do you start with that process and finding that excitement for life again?
Well, that's a great question. And the reason why I kind of chuckled dryly the way that I just did is because vision has been one of the most important things in my life. And I think that that's another really misunderstood word, right? Or it's a word that has so many meanings. And I even recently had a client who said, who I've been working with for quite some time. And he said, I don't understand why do we really need to work on our vision? And and he said, can't we just get going?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, but get going to where?
Yeah.
To where? And we were trained as women to find our vision through other people's lives, coursework. Today it's like through people's frameworks. Like there's a group coaching program and there's a framework, and I don't fit into frameworks and you don't either. We've talked about that so many times. And so it was frustrating that when I entered the world of online business, there were frameworks that were set up and you had to follow a framework, right?
Yeah.
And that was going to get you the results that the person who was talking to you was getting. But things shift, including algorithms and the way that products are bought and sold. And I have had a particular expertise, a very strong expertise in in the selling and buying of products at a really high level. I've worked with BMW and HBO and CBS and the Grammys and celebrities and very large brands, and gotten a lot of traction for them and done some of the largest multi-brand campaigns in history, the largest multi-brand campaigns in history. I never used to say those things about myself, but ladies, we got to own what we've done, right? Yeah. It took me till I was 61. Please don't wait that long. And so this thing of vision, for me, what vision means is not this sort of thing that you're trying to scratch at and clear the glass for. It's the things that come through you on a regular basis, the flashes that you have of where you're actually meant to go, that you push down, that I used to push down, that seemed like irrelevant almost. I would just let them kind of go in and out and push it away. But those are components of what you're actually being guided to do, because there is a force in us, a power in us, like there is in the acorn seed that grows into the oak, and we get in the way of it, whereas the oak does not. Imagine if an oak did what humans did. It would be this, it wouldn't even look like what an oak looks like. So vision we can consciously do. And so I from the 3 to 5 hours that I spent for many decades, every morning, super early, talking with God and bringing in all this information, I learned a process that very quickly, 15 minutes a day, will leads you to your, what I like to call your divine highest aligned vision, the one that's the fastest, safest, easiest, most protected, and in the highest good for all concerned vision for you. But if we don't check in to channel B, BE, then we're not going to find it.
Yep. You've, just to give context, and as you said, you're not very good at talking about all the things that you've done. So I'm going to drop a few things in because I love talking about all the things that you've done. But, on your journey, you are the vision of Audacity, because the bold, daring, and without restriction to prior ideas, you've been the founder of many things. And from putting together the gift bags for the Grammys, and a profitability consultant, and working to support men, I believe it was all men in growing car yards. There is so, and as an actress, there is such a variety of things that you've done. And in the world right now, we're looking at, who do we get to be coming out the other side of this? Because it's an opportunity for new. It's an opportunity for rebirthing who we are on the planet. This is, this is a space that's been provided. So how do you trust all these incredibly different things? Maybe if we pull out one of those experiences and look at how it came to be. So let's talk about doing the gift bags for the Grammys, because it's, I love talking about things that are a bit shiny and glamorous. How did that idea form, and then where did the knowing that you could pull off that audacious vision come from?
Yes, thank you. So the seeds of it were actually sown in my childhood. I can reflect back to my childhood. I always loved beautiful clothes. In fact, I've been receiving from my cousins a lot of pictures from our childhood. And in each of them, you can see that I am perfectly dressed in whatever style, going back to the kindergarten, before even, it's, a hat, sometimes gloves, bell bottoms, the whole thing, right? And so, and I knew when I was 3 years old that I wanted to be an actress. It was very clear to me. I was able to shift people out of it seemed to me, out of sadness. I didn't really have I was 3. I didn't necessarily have a vocabulary of understanding, but I noticed that they would go from an unhappy, sad face to a happy face when I sang, when I danced, when I told jokes. When I entertained them. And that made me happy. And so, and really, it was about them. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about, oh, look at me. It was about, if I do this, I see that they're going to go from this to this. And so I would repeat the things that made them do that. And of course I could dress up when I did it. And so when I came to Los Angeles, I met so many designers, clothing designers, and we became great friends. And at some point I realized they had all of this leftover clothing. And at the time there were no sample sales even. There was no such thing as a sample sale. So I started doing the first sample sales in LA for sure. I know that there was somebody else that was doing something sort of similar in New York. But often these were at stores. They were at like big stores. They'd bring bulk, product in, and then they'd slash the prices 70% off and sell the stuff. Me, I was bringing in very specific people. The designers would come as well. I'd have food, really beautiful food, because that's another part of my favorite thing in life.
Yeah.
And I would bring all of this together for the purpose of making women feel beautiful. And so that caught on.
Yeah.
And everybody started telling their friends. And I would turn my house in the Hollywood Hills into a boutique. All the floors in my house into a boutique. And it started attracting like some of the top celebrities in town. And they would tell the executives on their shows. And then some of the executives from other industries in LA would come, and it was a smashing success. I'd have, 100 people in a day, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700 people over a weekend sometimes. It was crazy. It was so successful.
Yeah.
And for my designer friends, I was taking all of this clothing that would just sit, and sometimes they'd have to sell it for $1 to $3 an item. And so here I was getting them their wholesale price, and that was amazing to them. So I was making money, they were making money, they loved me. And that's how I started doing the gift bags. One of my dearest friends was a talent coordinator on many of the award shows. And she said, Dick Clark Productions, who did Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve and American Music Awards, they were looking to figure out what to do for a gift bag. I said, well, how about if you she said, what can you tell them? And I said, tell them to put it in a guitar case because it's cool and everybody can walk away with it. She's like, oh, that's a great idea. I said, yeah. I said, Gibson or somebody is going to give them guitar cases for free. Absolutely. So they loved that idea. And that was a little opening for me to push the door wide open. I set up a meeting. I called them and I said, so you like that idea? I didn't even know them. So I said I met Larry Klein through this.
Yeah.
And he was Dick's like right-hand guy. And Larry set this whole thing up, and you're talking about audacity. I had never done this before. I called Larry and I said, look, so I heard you like the idea with the guitar cases. He said, yes. And I said, well, want me to blow your mind? And he said, yeah, I always want my mind blown. And more, he said more than that. But anyway, because he's a funny guy. But I said, all right, let's set up a meeting. Well, when I got there, there were 13 producers at the table. I had no idea there were going to be that many, but I wowed them. I brought all these products that could go in the gift basket, and they're like, we love it.
Yeah.
You got it. You got all our shows. And I mean, and it was funny because I was handing them out and I was like, well, it could have this in it and this in it and this in it. And they're like, all right. So our first show was December 22nd. Our first show is January, 7th or 9th or something. I mean, I had so few days, and I said, that is awesome, because we're going to do a lounge. And they're like, what's a lounge? I said, well, a lounge is where you invite the product and service companies to come in, because, obviously we're not going to have enough time to put the gift bag together. We're not going to get all the items here. Everybody's on vacation. And I said, but we're going to bring product and service companies here. They're going to be in the green room. Can you imagine? We're going to take that vinyl sofa with the tape across it, and we're going to bring in beautiful furniture. It's going to be, a famous designer is going to come in. We're going to have sushi from the best places. We're going to have Elixir Bar come in. I'm making it all up. It was just coming to me, and I was letting it flow. And every single thing that I said I was going to do, I did. And I took those clients that I'd done a lot of beautiful work for, and the ones that I thought would be best, they all said yes. Not one of them said no. They all said yes. They came backstage, and I did the first Celebrity Lounge. And I got every single show except for the Academy Awards, because they, Sequoia Productions does their gift bags, and They do their black and white ball, but they weren't doing the kind of gift bags that I was doing, where I was connecting it with magazines. I was connecting it with actual celebrities. I was setting up stories, and eventually Oprah, Rosie, Wayne Brady, like you name, at that time, I'm, you know, Inside Edition, Extra, Entertainment Tonight, Jay Leno, everybody started featuring the bags. It became such a fun thing. And my goal became, and this was just me listening, those little visions, ladies, that I was talking about, that we all get. Yeah. These flashes would come to me. And one of the flashes one day was, make the gift bag. It is my responsibility to make the gift bag more talked about than the actual show itself. And another day when I was asking about the products, like, I can't just take the products from product and service companies. I have to find a way to give back to them so they can continue to do this with me. How do I do that? And what came to me was to make each product in the bag a celebrity. And so I treated each product like a celebrity, and I got it tons of press. Every single one. And that was my goal. And then I knew that I had to give back because that's such a huge component. And so I began to ask for 10 extra items, and I put 10 extra gift bags together, and I would often have tickets to the show and sometimes a meet and greet with a celebrity or other little things added to it. You know, it all depended, you know, on who, like Jay Leno's wife has a charity. I don't know if people know this, but it's really amazing, actually. Her charity has done so much work to make, to bring awareness to clitoridectomies and to stop the practice of it. I mean, it's really Mavis that has done so much work to bring that to light. So in giving her those, Jay was so amazing that he began to have that bag taken out onto the streets when they would do those funny things, and they would give people gifts from, or do things with people. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah. So I took those visions, Edwina.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it all is so big. And what I am imagining is that we get drawn into these beautiful stories. I mean, this story is so fabulous, but it feels so removed from
normal life,
or my life, or, you know, the life of,
I'm aware of that,
the majority of people listening. But we all have these audacious visions, and I really want to drive in that it is part of audacity is without restriction to prior ideas. So we have a prior idea that perhaps we're too shy, or we don't know the right people, or we don't have the money, or we don't have the time, or, you know, we're restricted by these prior ideas of what's possible for us. But what you're talking about is really that very definition of audacity in letting that go. And that takes huge courage.
You know, I think for me, and I hear you, and I really appreciate what you said, because I was aware that I was sharing this story and that it is a big story, and that people are thinking to themselves, well, I couldn't do that. This is just completely irrelevant to me. And it's not, because you saw my excitement, and it's joy that is the driver for these things, not fear. And so I'd love to address a couple things that you just said. First, how does a person who has been afraid or shy or deeply introverted, like I'm an introverted extrovert. I love my time by myself. I have to have that balance. And I know that many women do. And I think it percolates even more as we get older. You know, we need to steep in time on our own. And so and it goes back to that thing of, you know, people tell you all these, just do it, just be joyful, but there's no process that we can look to actually, how do we go about doing that?
Yeah.
So and for me, the practice of that is that 15-minute morning routine.
Yeah.
Receiving the information and going, which developed my intuition to a very high degree. And the other is those soul ventures that I take, because it puts me in touch with that wild, what I like to call my wild essential nature.
Yeah.
And we all have that wild essential nature. And so something happened to us, you know, for that wild essential nature to be oppressed, yeah, or broken, or seemingly broken. Yeah. So how do we do it? Yeah. It's listening. It's listening. Yeah. And it's deciding that you're going to take whatever guidance you receive. It really is that. And yeah, that's a courageous act. But I mean, when you see those little visions or you hear that little thing, call so-and-so. Yep. Even the seemingly most, again, mundane things, yeah, are important components. We have no idea when we make that phone call exactly what's going to happen. Maybe the only point of it is to lift our spirits. Yeah. 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 Trusting ourselves. Yeah. Yeah. That's what you and I have talked about a lot, and it's what we talked about this too. Like, you know, how do you trust yourself? And I said, you know, for me, self-trust, because there's 3 different types of trust. There's trust in ourselves, trust in others, and trusting God or the divine and life itself. 3 types of trust. Yep. And if any of them are broken, we're not able to live fully. Yeah. And so the way I see it, it's our responsibility to heal each of those. And I believe that the place that it starts is where you get to do both. You get to find a way to trust yourself and trust in life, in God and life itself, or the divine or the universe, or whatever you want to call it. Like, it doesn't, I don't ascribe to any one word there for anybody. Yeah. And so that practice that I do in the morning, where I go in and I breathe, and it's the first thing when I wake up, so my brain isn't shutting down the information that's coming through. I'm still tired. I'm still groggy. I'm half awake writing these things, asking a couple of very specific questions, and the information flows through. And in doing that, I'm creating trust with myself, because I'm showing up for myself first thing in the morning. Yeah. I'm not showing up for everybody else, filling my own cup first. I like to call it set point. So I'm creating a set point for myself that is joy. I'm putting myself in my own the driver's seat of my own life. That's what that is right there. Otherwise, if you get up and you're just flailing, you're making the coffee, you're making the breakfast, you're doing the things, you're all over the place. You are not in the driver's seat, yeah, of your life. That I'm just going to interrupt, because I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that right now, because I've got in the habit of getting up and checking Facebook and my emails, and it just sucks the life out of me in the morning. And I know it's a bad habit, but even when we know something's not serving us, sometimes it's hard to break it. You know, whether it's buying a chocolate bar every time we go to the soup to fill up with fuel, or tuning into social media first thing in the morning rather than tuning into ourselves. Thank you for sharing that. I needed that reminder. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And, you know, it's interesting because we've been trained to believe, by the way, that that is a disciplinary, that's a discipline issue, but it's not a discipline issue. It's a dopamine issue.
Yeah.
So our brain is flooded with dopamine, even when we're waking up in the morning, and we have habitually done something. So it's very hard to break
Yeah.
that. And we really actually need someone to help us.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, even a friend who
Yeah.
you're doing this thing with, and you're getting on the line, and even if you're just writing the things out together, I will tell you,
Yeah.
you are more likely to show up at the beginning for somebody else than you are for yourself. And there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
Because the goal is just to show up. Doesn't matter how you got there.
Yeah.
Trike, bike, friend, whatever. Skateboard.
Yeah. Yeah, that connection with a real person, as opposed
Yes.
to just the superficial of email and social media. And yeah, very powerful. A very,
Yes.
very different way to start the day. So you talk about golden hour, and you've touched on a little bit of what that looks like, but let's flesh it out a bit more, give people some ideas.
Okay, fantastic. So there are a couple of different ways to go about it. But the primary component is that you ask very specific questions. And this is learning to know yourself. It's developing a relationship with your capital S self.
Yeah.
And in the process, you're going to see all of the many facets of yourself. We all have parts of ourself that we have abandoned, or that our guardians abandoned. And look, this is not about denigrating them. These are just facts, you know? And so in the process of doing this, these different facets of you will begin to show up. You'll begin to be able to distinguish from the wise voice, that is guiding you, versus the parts of you that are wounded and are crying out for your attention. And generally, I mean, this has been true in my experience so far, you always hear the voice the same way. Like you might hear it in your left ear, and it might come from behind you. It's almost like that for me. It's like I hear it from this side, from right back here. It's consistent. And it's never told me to do anything, you know, crazy. Wild sometimes. And when I say wild, it doesn't involve sex, drinking, drugs. It's my wild essential nature. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Releasing my shoulds and musts. And so it's tuning in and beginning to understand. It's like you don't have to take the advice right away. You can just sit down and begin to hear. You can begin to ask questions. And so I have some beginner questions, you know, in the guide. And some of the beginning questions in this way are, you know, I like to say, hello, soul. Thank you for greeting me here today. And then I will speak directly to God. You know, for me, I don't mind calling it God, because it's not a man in a chair with a, you know, beard, and I wasn't raised religiously. So I don't mind calling it God. But I ask very direct questions, and then I wait for the answer, and it comes to me. I'm not searching my head. It just comes to me. And with the writing, you know, people might say, well, it's automatic writing. Automatic writing is, you know, you're just letting your hand go. And this is different than automatic writing. I like automatic writing as well, but this is, you're very consciously asking questions and you're waiting until you hear the answer. And as you're hearing it, you begin to write. And once you begin to write, generally it continues until it's complete. And then you can ask other questions. So I'll ask things like, what is in my divine highest alignment to do today to move my mission, vision, and purpose forward? And I will get very specific instructions, so specific, like go to XYZ at 12:37 p.m. That was one of them, 12:37 p.m. Yep. Be on the lot at 12:37 p.m. The automobile dealership. Be on the pavement at 12:37. That turned into a multi-million-dollar deal. Yeah. He said, I can't believe your timing. I was just coming from a meeting over there with Mazda, and they were just telling me that they pretty much are going to do the same thing that you're doing. And I said, well, you know what that means? And he said, what? And he said, but they're going to do it for free. I said, well, you know what that means? And he said, what? And I said, that you're going to pay for it someplace else. Yeah. And he said, that's exactly what I was thinking. He said, you know what? Yeah. You've got yourself a meeting. Yeah. And that was the fastest one that we'd ever sold. Yeah. It happened in 2 weeks. Those things usually take months. It's the synergies that happen for us as women often. Yeah. We experience these things where things just go into a flow. Yeah. We all experience this. Yeah. But this is playing an active role in that. Yeah. It is participating in it. It's asking for it. Yeah. And it's having it delivered. Yeah. And following through on immediately with what you've been guided to do. Yeah. And trust yourself. Trust yourself. I know, and I have a sense of there's a sense of woo-woo. It's a sense of really, but I trust it, and it's just putting it into practice. And honestly, what have we got to lose? Just play with it. Can you give us those two questions again, just for the women that are madly trying to write it down? And what did she say? Yeah. What is in my divine highest alignment to do? And I actually often say to be or do, to move my mission, vision, and purpose forward today. Yeah. So I'm checking in every day with my business partner and I'm saying, what is important, and things that I would never think about, the things that never would come to me on my own come through. Yeah. How did Steve Jobs create the desktop computer? This vision that he had of a computer that could be held in people's hand. Yeah. And this notion that he got from another vision of making a dent in the universe. Yeah. That's powerful. And then he took, and he even said, if people want to go and watch the Stanford address, he quit college. He was at Stanford and he quit college. He went back and he gave a graduation address. And in it, he says that the two things that are this secret sauce to his success are intuition and creativity. So he was following these intuitive hits, these visions, some people call them downloads or uploads that he was receiving. Yeah. He followed those. Yeah. 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 And I mean, that's exactly what you did with the gift bags and all the other extraordinary things that you've brought to life. I think it was Mary Morrissey told me, I learned from her, everything's created twice, whether it's
the dress I'm wearing, which was actually made by my aunt many, many years ago, probably 50 years ago, or, you know, our earrings, the chair we're sitting on, the house we're in, everything starts with a vision. Everything starts with that beautiful, I'm calling it the ultimate playroom, our imagination, where we get to play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are, and that's a really good point that you bring up, Edwina, because I've thought about this quite a bit. There are levels. There's imagination, and then there is this space where we are bringing in the unknown, unseen.
Yeah.
We are bringing something from the unknown, unseen into the known, seen world. That's what Steve Jobs did.
Yeah.
That is a deep vision.
Yeah.
That's beyond just imagination, right? Imagination is beautiful. And then there's this whole other level. The birth, like developing a car, Henry Ford, an airplane, the Wright brothers, Madame Curie with, I can't remember what she created right now, plutonium, anyway. But all of these people who have had a deep vision and who had to trust in the things you can't see. And that's why it's called woo-woo, because we cannot see it. And so it's associated with fakery and witchcraft and magic, like black magic. And it's unfortunate because it couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
You know, the World Wide Web to me is a gift from God. It's connecting. And I saw that when I was 12 years old, by the way, in a vision. I saw all these women on a screen and they all spoke different languages. And I could understand the languages. And we're moving toward that where there'll be people on the call and they'll be speaking their language, but the words will actually be printed right there for us. There are definitely going to be apps where we can have like Zoom, but they're not speaking English, but they're hearing it or they're seeing the words in real time and we're all speaking. Of course that's coming.
Yep.
And that's what I saw. And I saw that I was going to have a part I was going to play a very important role. And I also saw the keyboard. And the first time that I saw my Blueberry computer, my Apple computer, the Blueberry, that desktop, big bubble thing, I knew, wow, this was it. This was the thing that I was seeing. I gave me chills. And I saw it when I was 12. That was 1971, long before there were desktop computers.
It's like deja vu. It's not, no, deja vu is something we experienced before. It's a little bit.
Yeah.
We have that. It reminds me of a conversation that I had with my youngest son, Archie, when, you know, a couple of years ago, and he would talk about seeing things in his dream that he then experienced. And I know, you know, like with my children, that we have this in us. But as we grow older, you know, there becomes a level of shame or embarrassment, or it's woo-woo. So we stop talking about it, we stop tapping into it, we stop trusting it, listening to it. But it's in all of us, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that, again, that sort of wild essential nature that we have that will always guide us.
Yep.
It's always watching over us.
Yeah.
It's always guiding us to the right thing, which is why we know when we're off, because it's always there saying yes or no.
Yeah.
And that thing where people are, where some of the women that are listening right now, where there's that constant knocking, you're being called.
Yeah.
It's inside of you. You're being called and you're not answering the call.
Yeah.
And you might say, oh, I don't know what the call is, because you haven't sat down and just asked and listened.
Or I know that sometimes we ignore it. I talk about it, as taps on the shoulder. The universe keeps tapping me on the shoulder. One of the things that I keep getting taps about that I'm still ignoring is cold water therapy. It is, like the Wim Hof, I'm hearing it over and over again. Oh, your camera just went off, darling. I'm hearing it over and over again. It's like, I know I need to hear this. I know I need to do it, but oh my gosh, the resistance is high. But we do, we get those taps from the divine God, the universe. It keeps showing up, and we can ignore it for years, or we can start this practice of tuning in and listening and trusting.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I had that tapping for Wim Hof, and I have been doing it, and it's extraordinary. The idea of being able to wield your immune system at will, which is what he says. You can direct your immune system at will. And that's what I'm talking about with your vision and with your intuition and with your asking. We are told to ask and you shall receive. If you actually look up the etymology of each of those words, it's a formula. Ask, make the request, and meaning this will happen. You shall, one thing follows another, receive. Ask and you shall receive. And, when I asked in Golden Time, I said, well, how much can I ask? Because I remember saying to someone, oh yeah, I asked what kind of water I should buy at the store, if I should have wine or not wine, which wine I should buy. She said, oh, God is so busy. God doesn't have enough time to tell you what wine to buy. And I was like, God does not have like a calendar that gets full. So I was, God, like, how much is too much to ask? And God said, even 1,000 times a day is not too much. And in fact, like, pick up the volume.
Yeah. Receive. Oh my gosh. This is so typical of our conversations. It's like, oh, the next thing. And then 3 hours later, we're still talking and my kids are going, Mom. Like, as is so typical with our conversations, I'm over here taking notes because you always drop all these golden nuggets that I just want to keep in my brain and come back to. I know that you have a beautiful gift for our audience that you touched on, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I've got one more question that I want to ask you. And as somebody who, and here I am going to be, like dropping little nuggets from your life that you don't share normally. I'm taking it out of your hands.
Okay, that's what you're going to drop.
What is she going to say? As somebody who has partied with the likes of Prince and Eddie Murphy and, like done so many extraordinary, audacious, fabulous things in your life, I want to ask you, what is the one thing that drops into your mind if I ask you, what is the most audacious thing that Jaimsyne Blakely has done in her life? What would it be?
Wow. Wow. Well, the first thing that came to me was to leave the gift basket business, which was profitable, which was flashy. I mean, it was cool. I had a house that was open 24/7 that celebrities could come to at any time. Everything in it was available for sale, or we could give it away for free, or it was amazing. And I just knew that it was time to pull the plug for me. And it was fascinating I called it unplugging from the grid, because I worked so many days a week, so many hours a day. And it was my identity. And so I essentially like took sledgehammers to my identity, and so that I could be me and not have my identity be based in my work or who I knew or the house I lived in or the car I drove or the friends I had or perceived that I had, the status that I had or perceived that I had. And I definitely was the butterfly. I definitely went to that gelatinous mass as the, you know, I did a birth, death, rebirth cycle. And then I did a whole other cycle of that again, only this time it didn't look anything like my past. It wasn't based, like now my life isn't based on anything from my past. And I've learned how to live in what I call the beautiful void, that place where you don't know. And to just take the guidance that I receive on a daily basis and to only follow that. So it's not about my comfort, my discomfort, my perception of what's going to make me happy or unhappy. It's like if it says get on a plane and go to such and such, okay, well, it's COVID, I'm getting on a plane tomorrow. It's COVID, it's like get on a plane, buy yourself the mask. I was supposed to buy these masks, you know, the things, you know, so I bought it, and face shield, and I am this will be the third time that I've gone to Washington, and I drove the other 2 times. And that in my brain would have said, this is so inconvenient. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to do that. I would have overridden it. Yeah. But when the guidance comes and it's so strong and I know it and I feel it, I get it. And I mean, there's no doubt. Then I take the guidance and I ask, which day am I going to leave? What time of the day am I going to leave? And I mean, I get it down to the seat even. Like I went and I said, is it on this side or is this side of the plane? Is it the front part or the back part? Is it, and then I find the exact seat. Is it this seat? And I feel it in my body. It's this resonating energy that feels very happy and very good. And so, yeah, every single thing now, I live from the guidance.
Wow. Whatever that guidance was that guided us into each other's lives, I will be forever grateful.
Me too.
Jaimsyne, you have a beautiful gift for the women tuning in. Would you take a minute just to let them know what that is?
Yes, I put together a guide for my clients for the golden time experience. And I also, because you and I spoke and you said, well, you know, you do such beautiful things. And I thought, yeah, I would love to give everyone an opportunity to have a session with me where they can, we'll take 25 minutes. This is just free. It's just a gift for your people. And, you know, there's no strings attached. This is not like, and then we're going to, no, this is literally part of my mission. Is it's so important for us as women, especially as we're managing and we're maneuvering through, navigating through times that are so intense. Imagine knowing 100% of the time, 100% accurately, what decision you should make. I have learned how to do that, and I want to share that with you. So I'm going to do a session with you where we go in, you have a question, and I'm going to show you how to get these answers within yourself. And by the way, I used to do readings, and at one point it became very clear to me that that was not my business. I was a businesswoman, 4-time startup founder, actress, writer. I still write, but I realize how important it is for women to know this, men too, but you know, we're talking to women here right now. And so I want to give you that gift of knowing how to do it. And the parlor trick for me was when I would read for people, then they would become dependent upon me. And one of my breakthroughs was, wow, I need to show people how to know for themselves.
Yeah.
So that's what essentially I'm giving everybody, is a 25-minute session, which is a variation on golden time that you don't have to do in the morning. You can do it anytime.
Yeah.
And I'll show people how to do that.
It's magic. It's magic. I am going to perhaps have a conversation with you at capping that at a certain number after we wind this up, because your time is precious and I don't want that to explode. You are so phenomenally generous, Jaimsyne. This has been gorgeous, and it's just the tip of the iceberg, but the fact that I get to share you with women across the globe and for them to get a little glimpse into your incredible pool of wisdom is an absolute honor. Thanks, sweetheart.
Oh my gosh, I love you so much.
Mwah. Bye.
Mwah.
As we adventure through this magnificent journey called life, we can be blessed enough to have the odd, truly magical soul cross our path. And Jaimsyne Blakely is just such a woman in my life. When I first met her, I witnessed her in action, in displaying what I can only describe as incredible generosity. She is the sort of person that draws people together and she pours into them her love, attention, and wisdom. And you just literally watch people blossom under her influence. She is a gift. So it is the greatest pleasure that I got to introduce you to Jaimsyne if this is your first meeting with her. I strongly encourage you to dive into her gifts and take advantage of anything that she shares. Today we touched on taking the mundanity out of life. Gold. Pure gold. If you have that written up on your fridge, make it the home screen on your computer, on your phone, wherever you can look at it, and remind yourself, we are on an adventure. I like to think of this life that I am the heroine of my life story, and so are you. So what do you want these next chapters to look like? Not one of you, do I believe, is going to say mundane. We want to live a beautiful, full, rich life, whatever that looks like for you. So get out your sequins, put on your red lippy, light yourself up, feel excited, and treat yourself like the goddess, like the queen, like the empress that you are as you embark on this magnificent journey where no dream is too big and the drive to feel intensely alive is fully unleashed. All right, that's it from me today. So much love. Mwah, and bye for now.